Hello, everybody, and welcome to StarNet Link. And today we have a guest, and this is Erin. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, Erin, to my audience and let them know what type of work that you do?
Hi, everybody. My name's Erin. I am an energy worker, energy healer. Um, so I mainly do Reiki, as well as Oracle card reading and a little bit of mediumship that sneaks into Reiki sessions sometimes. So, uh, yeah, basically working with energy. I like to say my sister's a massage therapist and we work together sometimes. So I like to make the comparison that she is massaging your muscles. I massage energy and do similar things, help to work out the spots where you might be holding too much or the things that are tight and need to release, things like that.
How long have you been doing this type of work?
Well, I started around 2017, so 6-ish years. Started just dabbling kind of in oracle cards, things like that. Um, and then learned Reiki, and everything just kind of snowballed where I am now.
Have you always been a medium, or did you just start trying to get interested in it, or is it like a skill that you just started to develop or awaken into, or was this like a lifelong skill that you had and you started tapping into?
So it's really funny because it's a more recent development, honestly. And I've been looking into it, trying to hone it. It's something that kind of showed up, and now I'm trying to tame it a little bit, learn it, understand it. And reading so many accounts of people who are mediums saying, "Oh, I've seen spirits since I was a child, and my best friend growing up was a ghost in my house," and all of these things. And I have none of that. I've never seen a ghost. Like, I've never communicated with spirit consciously until recently. So it's super interesting to me because so many accounts are like, "Oh, I've had this all my life. I've known this all my life." For me, it wasn't until I started doing Reiki um, and after a few years of doing Reiki, even that I noticed that, and I remember one session, and it was a quick session. It was at a festival, so it was like a 15-minute session, and I just kept seeing this older woman handing me lilacs. And I asked, "Do you know?" And so before I kind of dial back, when doing Reiki sessions, I've always been able to connect with like people's guides. So angels, some ancestors, spirit guides, things like that have come through with messages before. But so this one felt a little bit different somehow. I was like, your guide, there's this guy, they're offering you lilac. Did you know anyone who really loved lilac? She like, started crying. That's my grandma. So I'm like, oh, well, I guess I'm talking to spirits now. Which, in the grand scheme of things, shouldn't have been surprising because it all worked together, ancestors, deceased loved ones, spirit guides, angels, they're all part of that same realm. So I don't know why it was such a leap for me to understand that's what's happening. Um, yeah, that's kind of how it started. And now that I can tune into it a little bit more, I'm starting to do more readings that are just medium readings versus using the Reiki as kind of almost an excuse to tap into it. But yeah, it's not something that I've been consciously working with. I'm sure as I dive more into it and look more into it, I'll notice things and be like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense now." Um, Different things that have happened in my life, but as far as like consciously working as a medium, it's pretty new to me.
So when you started doing Reiki, did it like awaken your ability to become a mediumship, or did you start to awaken your mediumship on yourself, or did it just naturally start to come to you? Like, can you like describe like what like happened, I guess, happened to you, or what you started to experience to like maybe help other people that might be going through this
Yeah.
I guess experience?
Yeah. So for when I started doing Reiki, I got into Reiki almost as a rebellious act, which is most of my life. But me and my sister owned a yoga studio, and she's a certified yoga instructor. She's a yoga trainer. And I taught yoga, but didn't have the certification, you know. So it was kind of this thing where she was doing another round of yoga teacher training, and I was invited, but I had a newborn, and I was like, it's so demanding. I can't do whole weekends away. And so I was thinking, like, okay, what can I bring to this business? What can I bring to this partnership if I'm not going to move forward in the like yoga direction? So I came across Reiki. I had been doing oracle cards for a little while, so I was kind of in that vein. Um, and I've always been intuitive, always been kind of the person people go to for advice, um, and things like that. So Reiki felt like a very natural. Once I discovered it and found out what it is, it felt like a very natural avenue to be a healer. Um, so Reiki is the a Japanese form of energy healing. I love it because one, it's not super ancient. It's based on ancient techniques, but Reiki itself was developed in like the 1920s. So um, it doesn't feel like stepping on cultural toes because it's a pretty new development. Um, so I like that about it, that it's newer, it's fresher. And while it taps into this ancient and timeless energy, of Reiki or Ki or Chi, which is the life force energy. It uses that, but it's a more modern technique. So I found it and I figured, okay, this is something I can do. This is something I can add to our community. So I got certified online, um, and I didn't use it for a little while. I practiced a little bit on myself, but honestly, not even that much. And when I started doing Reiki, I was like, okay, it's interesting, but I just don't know. I don't know if this is it. I don't know if this is my calling. Like, I'm glad I know it and know about it, but I'm not sure. Well, then, probably about 6 months later, we got an email to the yoga studio of someone that wanted Reiki. And we had a teacher that was doing Reiki for us. And she wasn't available that day. So I, thought to myself, and well, there's no reason I can't do it. I'm I'm attuned, I'm certified, I'm available, and I ran it past my sister because she's my business partner, and also, she's got those checks for me, and she's like, "Yeah, do it." So I emailed the client back. I didn't end up working with that client, um, but it kind of opened the doors for me to be like, "Oh wait, I can do this, and why am I not doing this?" So I started practicing on family and friends. Just to be like, okay, I'm going to do this outside of myself. I want to practice with people I know, see what this even is. So I started practicing, and I remember the first time I did it on someone else, my hands got really, really hot, like really hot. And I was like, okay, I guess this is working. Like, I guess this is happening. Um, so there's a lot of like self-doubt in the beginning, especially with energy work, because it's not something palpable, right? It's not something that you can see like, oh, I just did surgery and now I can see the scar or the stitches. You're like, it takes a lot of trust in yourself and belief in yourself. So, yeah, that helped. That little nod, that like my hands got hot right away. So I was working on people, and I used to get so mad at myself because I was trying to concentrate, and I do mostly half-hour sessions, sometimes hours. But I get so mad at myself because my mind would just, I felt like my mind was wandering. Like, Erin, stay present. And in my training, part of the training was like, okay, mentally go to your Reiki place, like, and have this place in your mind. And my mind wouldn't stay there. And I was so mad at myself and so frustrated. Like, "Ah, you're failing these people. you can't concentrate. And then one time I just felt really called to tell someone, like, okay, usually we go to this Reiki place and I try to stay there, but we're not there. Like, we're in this, it's like this attic room of a cottage, and there's these white, like, sheer curtains blowing in the breeze, and there's a lake or ocean or something outside the window. And it's just so unique. And she was like, oh, that sounds just like my grandma's house. And I was like, oh, got it. So, like, I'd spent so much time trying to push these messages down because I didn't realize what they were. I was mad at myself for my mind wandering and being like, why am I thinking of a beach house right now? I'm supposed to be here with this person. And realizing that it was messages. It was messages from their guides, messages from their loved ones, messages from the universe. Once I got through that block, a lot opened up. And the more that I expressed what I was experiencing, the more it resonated with clients, and the more and more came through. So on down the line until, like I said, with the woman and the lilacs, that it was clear that, like, that was her grandma. Um, yeah, it really started out a lot of grandmas, a lot of sassy grandmas too, like grandmas with things to say would come through me. Another time it was I was doing a distance session for a friend of mine. So I was just texting her while I was doing Reiki, and I was like, it was the weirdest thing. Her granny, she's from Virginia. So granny um was coming through, and she was telling me about making beans. And, like, I'm from Michigan. I'm from, like, you know, big city, small town, Grand Rapids. Like, we didn't sit on the porch and shuck beans or any of that. And this message that was coming through to her was like, you need to make the beans. You need to make the beans. And it was about slowing down and doing things the right way and taking the time. And I was like, I don't know why I'm saying this. I've never made beans in my life, but you need to make the beans. Like, there's a granny there with a wooden spoon and her hand on her hip saying you need to make the beans. She's like, that's my granny. So sassy grandmas came through, and dogs too, interestingly. Um, and yeah, since then it's open to more than that. But, it really started as I believed more, as was just more open to it. Like, as I was more open to, okay, this is available and I can be a channel for this. Um, it started happening more and more.
So when it comes to like Reiki and leadership, do you work with just, I guess, humans, or do you also work with animals in your practice?
I haven't done too much with animals. I have a few friends who specialize more in animals. And it's just not something I've dabbled in too much. Uh, it's more humans, but I have had a lot of animal connections come through in my session. So, um, I'll be doing Reiki, and then all of a sudden there's just a dog right here, like, trying to lick my face. And I'm like, did you have a dog who licked your face all the time? Yeah, that's Taffy. Yeah, but I haven't practiced very much on animals.
Um, so the other question that I have is, do you when you talk to like spirits or talk to other people's loved ones, like, what do they normally come to their loved ones about, or like I guess the common messages that you get from like spirits or like um past loved ones, like what type of messages that they usually like to bring to their loved
It's a good.
ones on in the living world?
For me, this is another interesting thing because it feels kind of different to what I've read, what I've experienced. Most things that I've seen or read about mediumship, and the popular TV shows and all of that stuff, I always see people being like, oh, this is how they died. This is how they died. And, like, talking about how they died and adding some reassurance that, like, they're okay now, is what I've seen. And that has just not been my experience. And I don't know if it's because I'm not always approaching it from thus far, I haven't approached it very often. I have done a few readings that are just mediumship, and they're a little more like that. So I guess it depends on what way you're coming at it. Because when I come at it from a Reiki standpoint, the purpose of that interaction is so focused on the client and their healing that the energies that come through, that's the intention. So it's not as focused on them. It's not as focused on how they're doing or why they passed or what they have to say. It's focused on healing. So, yeah, the messages are mostly like um, just so often letting them know that, hey, I'm still here. I'm here. I see you. Sometimes they'll give signals, signs of like, I saw this happen, whether it's someone's aunt or grandma who's passed away and I am receiving images of like a small child. Like, did they have a child or do you have a child? Like big blue eyes and like a blonde bowl cut. And they're like, oh my God, that's my son. And he was wearing overalls on his birthday and things like that. So especially when I do Reiki readings, it's when the mediumship comes in as a part of a Reiki experience, it's often just that reassurance, that like giving signs of I'm still here, and words of advice, little reminders like that, little mantras that they can hold on to, which is really, really lovely because, and I think, like I said, now that I think about it more too, as we're talking, I think that's why the messages are a little skewed in that direction because it has come so much out of the Reiki, the healing side of things. I have done a few sessions that are specifically like mediumship. I want to get in touch with someone. And that was a little bit more of like reassurance, um, more messages of I'm here and I'm not scared. Um, Most of the time, I've found that that's with children. When I connect with children who have passed, it's a lot of reassurance of I'm okay, which makes sense because that's what the adults who miss them want to know, right? Is if they're okay. Whereas, I mean, people are concerned about their grannies too, but there's less of that needing reassurance of I'm okay and more needing reassurance of I'm still here for you. I can still see you. I'm still a part of your life.
I guess spirits on the other side, does it bring a lot of closure to them to help them move, I guess, cross over, or does it mostly help more on your client's side to like heal, I guess, physically, emotionally, and spiritually?
I think typically it helps the people more. I think typically it helps clients more who are receiving the messages. Um, like I said, I've not interacted that much with many spirits who felt really stuck. Um, mm, Half and half. So yeah, generally, yeah, half and half. So one half is like I don't feel like people are very stuck. I feel like they're still there. And I was actually reading a book called I Am a Medium or You Are a Medium. I should have I I should have the title or the author, but I don't have it memorized. I was reading it and it was talking about this theory that spirits stay around and they learn from us, which I thought was really beautiful and really lovely. So there's, you know, things they couldn't learn in this lifetime, they stay close, not only to love and protect us, but to learn from us. I thought that was so cool that, like, especially thinking about past generations and the way things have shifted in the world in the past, 20, 30, 40 years, and the emotional availability that we have, the openness that um, we and the younger generations are just growing and growing and growing in this openness and acceptance and expression. And I think that's so cool to think that these generations that didn't have that because they weren't taught that, and it wasn't available are watching and learning. I think that's a really, really cool idea. So I think they're learning from us, but I don't always think that they need to speak to us to be released in any sort of way. Um, on the flip side, yeah, there are some, so other completely other side of the spectrum, and this feels more ancient, more not ancient, but older generations, the generations that we don't know, like 4, 5, 7, 8 generations back. A lot of times I'll have a client that I'm doing Reiki on, and it especially happens for me, it happens when I'm working on their back, which makes sense, right? Ancestors passed back. Um, but as I'm working through their energy that they hold in their back, a lot of times ancestor stories will come up. And sometimes they just need their story to be told or acknowledged to be released. So like um we hold things, we hold trauma, we hold stories, we hold energy from 7 generations back within our bodies. So we're not conscious of that. But sometimes when I'm doing Reiki sessions, especially if there's um, violent history or tragic history or traumatic history in those past generations, their energy will be stored. So I have had sessions where they need their story told. So part of this energy is being held in their descendant's body, and they just want their story told. They want their story acknowledged, and it's not a conscious thing either. It's not. I don't believe, at least, that it's like not spirits consciously staying with us and being like, I need my story to be told, so I'm going to hold on. Um, it's just an energetic thing. It's that energetic connection. It's that need that we all have to be heard, to be seen, to be acknowledged. And so we carry that through. And I do believe in that case that um that it can help the spirits move on. I don't believe it's like the entire spirit of that being. Like I don't think that someone's great 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 uncle is 100% all of their energy attached to the back of their hip until I release them. But I do think that there is a spark, some connection of that energy, pieces of that spirit that remains stuck. And then, you know, once acknowledged, can be released from that story that they live.
So when you're like doing Reiki on your clients and they, I guess you want to call it soul attachment and stuff, um, does this create some sort of, I guess, blockage or barrier in the your client's life that starts to show up frequently in their life and they don't know how to get rid of it or
Yeah.
or make peace with it and stuff? Is it is it sort of like a haunting, or do they mostly just cause actual physical illness on your clients, or is it mostly just them like irritating their clients and just like, hey, I just want you to know this about me, or is it sort of like in the old movies, like in Hollywood where you're dealing with a lot of angry entities trying to attack the, I guess, the person? Like, do you like deal with that, or do you have like experience, or like what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, I've not experienced that like angry spirit demon type of energy too much. I have really strong protection. Like I said, I have friends, I have loved ones, I hear all these stories of like, oh, this house I lived in was haunted and all these horror. And I'm like, no, oh God, no, that would be awful. Like, so I think I just have really strong protections around myself as part of the thing. Like I have a really strong spiritual team on the other side that I'm like, no, I don't want to deal with that. And they're like, okay, we got you. Like, yeah, Archangel Michael is number one on my team. And he's like, okay, no, no one's gonna mess with her. Um, So I'm not saying it doesn't exist because I think that that does exist. It's not something I've dealt with too much. Um, yeah, I think the way that it generally manifests itself, it's so subtle and it's so unseen. And yeah, that's one of the reasons that I love Reiki. That's one of the reasons I think it's really helpful, especially for people or those times in your life when you're like, I just feel stuck. Like I just feel stuck. I feel gross. I don't know. I've done all the things, like especially people who either don't know where to start and they're like, I don't know if therapy's for me. I don't want to start there. I don't like talking about it, or I don't even know what I need to talk about because I don't know why I'm feeling like this. I don't know why I'm stuck. I don't know why things keep happening. And or if you've talked through everything in therapy and you still just have these blocks. Like that's why I really love Reiki because it it it's beyond what you can see. So these entities, these spirits, this energetic attachment, these things that you carry for your ancestors, you might know about them, you might feel them, but chances are you can't pinpoint them and you don't know the why. Because I don't necessarily believe that these energies know the why either. I don't know that they're consciously hanging on and being like, I'm staying here until my story is told. I think it's a lot more, I think it's less intentional than that. It's like a basic need and it's pure impulse versus that intention. That's why I don't think there's a lot of times anger attached because it's below anger. It's like, breathing. It's that need to be witnessed. Um, so while some of it has been super intense, um, and as I go through it, sometimes I experience it like in part. So I was working on someone and I was just like all of a sudden was coughing and having trouble breathing. And I was like, you're holding on to someone was in a fire. Someone was in a fire. And I was just coughing out of nowhere for no reason. And I wasn't in danger, but you know, it's that being witnessed, that experience, being told, being understood, being seen. Um, so I feel like I keep half answering the question and I'm getting all the way there. But
It's
yeah, so I feel like it's just this need and sometimes it does affect me. Sometimes I do, I cough like I'm surrounded by smoke or, I'll get intense pain. I don't believe it's malicious. Um, and I think that's lends itself to how it's manifested. I don't think that I don't think that anyone is intentionally haunting their descendants. In my experience, like I said, that might exist somewhere, not in my experience. I think it's just this need to be heard and seen and understood. And as it's not that much of a conscious act, it manifests its way in it manifests itself in really subtle ways. So body pain, like yes, there are physical reasons we have pain. There are a lot of chronic pains and illnesses that cause chronic pains and mysterious chronic pains. A lot of these can be energetic. Um, and I find that as I go through working with clients and I'm like, oh, you have this energy stuck in your hip, like, and they're like, oh yeah, that hip does hurt all the time. Or, I do get, shooting pains in the shoulder. And while the body itself is a mystery and the nervous system is incredible and mesmerizing and confusing, it does work together. The nerves do work with the energy. And yeah, I think that a lot of times it manifests itself as these physical ailments that we can't pinpoint a reason for. Um, I also think that it can manifest in blockages, in habits, in things like that. a really good book on this that I haven't worked my way through yet because it's really good and pretty dense as the body keeps the score. And then there's another good one called It Didn't Start With You. And both of these are about trauma that's held in the body, generational trauma, and all of that. So, you know, It Didn't Start With You talks a lot about how we internalize trauma from our ancestors. So if our grandfather, was never shown love, then that can manifest in us and our ability to show love. And not just from like he passed it down from grandfather to father to me or something like that, but this innate feeling of there's stories in this book of people whose like uncle, murdered someone and then it manifests in your life at a certain time around the same age, this just feeling of guilt or whatever. And it's not always that explicit and it's not always that huge, but it is like, oh, maybe I feel this disconnection because, my grandmother's mother was distant or something like that, where it's like these injuries, these traumas, they suffer energetically we carry, and it can lead to blocks in our own life. And that's why a lot of times people go through trauma and they're like, okay, I messed up or my life is messed up or my heart hurts because of all this trauma I've been through. But what brought on that trauma? What brought us into that cycle? And I'm not saying, I'm not victim blaming, like it's not their fault, but these energetic blockages that we're working out that we don't even know are there, which seems really unfair. But yeah, and I think that that's a lot of the way that this energy from ancestors manifests itself is in these blockages that we can't pinpoint because we don't know them. So certain things like, talk therapy only goes as far as things you can talk about and, you know, um, other therapies that are so reliant on our input, um, that and medical help too, that's reliant on what's actually happening in the body. What can we see? What can we diagnose? And there's so much energetically happening beyond that, and I think that that's mostly where the spirit connection, where this energetic ties or these cords manifest themselves in ways that are really hard to see and understand.
So when you're working with Reiki on people, is Reiki mostly used for, I know it's used for energy work, but does this type of energy work help with like smaller ailments like headaches, joint pain, arthritis, or can it also be used on more like serious stuff that might require surgery, or is it just like a means to just like help balance the person and their lifestyle that they're in?
Yeah. Yeah, all of the above. I mean, I've heard of, what people would call miraculous healings using Reiki, and other pretty ordinary things. But yeah, definitely removing these energetic blockages can open up so much in our body. Um, that yeah, chronic pain. I I had a pinched nerve in my neck from a muscle spasm in my shoulder for the better part of a year. And I kept going to the chiropractor when it would flare up, and chiropractic care would take it back down, but it kept reoccurring. And then my chiropractor was like, Erin, you do Reiki, don't you? I was like, well, yeah, I do. Why? Are you doing it on yourself? Like, no. So then I started doing Reiki on myself every night as a practice, which I should have been doing anyway. But sometimes you need those reminders to take care of yourself, and the pain has gone. And I mean, is my neck completely healed? No. Do I still have like some bulging discs? Yes. Do I have pain that's shooting down my arm every day? No, I haven't in probably almost 2 years. So Yeah, I feel silly saying it, but yeah, I've had results. Um, I've had clients with results too, and yeah, like I said, for those things that we just can't understand and can't balance, and all of these things that we carry that we don't know how to release, whether we weren't taught to release things healthily regarding emotions or all of these generational things that we don't even know we're carrying. Um, yeah, that it's so good for releasing the things that we don't know how to, releasing all these unnamed things that hold us back. So most of the time, clients feel lighter after Reiki. They feel lighter. Um, yeah, just a little bit more unburdened. And it's not something that's gonna like one Reiki session is gonna heal everything. But continued attention can maintain your energetic balance a little bit more, and it can release things. It can help you hold your energy in a different way and release what's not serving you. So it's definitely, I think, is it going to heal a broken bone? No, not entirely, not in one session. But can it help? Yeah, it can help loosen up some of your energy so that more energy can go into healing that broken bone. Um, yeah, so especially chronic pain, especially anxiety, depression, trauma, all these things we carry, grief that we don't know how to work through. It can help work through a lot of that. Um, and a lot of it is scary to work through. And we don't work through it. Again, like we don't want to go to traditional therapies because we don't want to talk through our trauma, or we don't even know it because it's things we're carrying. So Reiki is a really nice way to do that in a passive way. And it's not that you're unaffected. Like I've had clients that are like, "Ooh, I probably needed to take the rest of the day off because that was a lot. I feel drained." Like, and so it's not that you're unaffected by it, but it's not as much work for the person to do the digging themselves. They'll still have to recover. They'll still, maybe be tired, probably going to want to like rest and drink a lot of water, similar to a massage again. Um, but it's a different way of getting at things that isn't as active for the client.
In your years of doing Reiki leadership, I know that a lot of people, are still learning about this. Some people are a little bit skeptical about this type of stuff. Have you dealt with a lot of criticism with your work? Have you met people that are, you know, a little bit too scared to like dive into this type of stuff? Like, what do you say to them, or what can you tell people that might help them be a little bit more open to this type of stuff?
Yeah, I haven't noticed too much outright like you're evil, this is witchcraft. But I also don't notice these things. Like I have three children that I breastfed entirely for like 7 years of my life, and I'm like, no one ever gave me dirty looks while I was breastfeeding, and my husband's like, okay. And so I'm realizing this about myself that, like I said, I have these strong protections. So I don't notice if like people that are in my life or people I come into contact with are like, this is bad, you're evil, whatever. So I haven't come up across too much of that personally. I definitely have come up across people who are skeptical. Um, my husband is the most skeptical. Like the other day, I was getting a Reiki session done for me. And so I texted him and said, "Hey, when you come home, I'm in the basement. I'm having a Reiki session. Leave me alone. I'll come up when I'm done." And he, later I came up and he's like, "Wasn't someone here?" And I was like, "No, it was distance Reiki. Like, and I wasn't doing it, I was receiving it." He's like, "Oh, do you think that works?" I'm like, yes, I do. Like, number one, this is what I do. So yes, I believe it works. And two, I'm paying someone to do this for me. So yes, I'm paying someone to do this for me. I believe in it. So like I'm surrounded by skeptics. And I have done sessions on him, and he's finally, it took years for him to be like, okay, let's do this. And you know, it's only as you're only affected as much as you want to be, or only as open as you are. So his sessions were okay, they were fine. Um, was he as affected by them as perhaps I was? Maybe not, because he is so kind of skeptical and closed off in certain ways. Um, and not in a not saying that as a criticism, just we all have different levels of openness and awareness. Um, so yeah, it's people are skeptical. I'm skeptical. Like it feels weird to sit here and be like, I healed my shoulder pain, which I know is nerve pain and I know it, but like I didn't know what was causing this muscle spasm. And now since I've been releasing that energy, I haven't gotten that muscle spasm. So like it's hard for me to believe sometimes too. Um, but it's just so spot on that like my friend and her beans, like that's not something I ever would say. I I don't know how to you know get beans and shuck them. You shuck corn. I don't even know if you shuck beans. What do you do to beans? I don't know, but that was something that I was compelled to say to her, and she was like, "Oh yeah, my granny made the best beans." So like, I I I I can't deny it. Like it just I've seen too much proof. And if people are skeptical, that's fine. We're not all ready for the same things at the same time or even in the same lifetime. So I have a few friends who are like, yeah, I really want to do Reiki, but I'm kind of scared. And I'm like, okay, well, when you're ready, I'll be here, or someone else will be here. It doesn't have to be me, especially with people close to me. It doesn't have to be me if you're not comfortable with that sort of energetic connection, but like it's available when you're ready. And and if you're not ready, that's okay. But the thing that I like to tell people is it's nothing bad is going to happen. Reiki is working with the highest form of energy. And that's again why I like coming at it from a Reiki angle, especially with a mediumship. I don't want to work with malevolent spirits. I don't want to work with those who are stuck and nefarious and angry. So coming at it through Reiki is a gateway for the highest possible energy. So one, working through Reiki energy. Two is, like I said, I have a really strong protective team. Um, Archangel Michael and beyond. So bad is not going to come from this. Uncomfortable messages can, and that's a thing that happens. Sometimes people aren't ready for the messages that come through. But beyond that, like Reiki is the highest form of energy. It's the life force connection. It's golden energy. It's not here to cause harm. So the worst case scenario, you go to a Reiki session and you feel relaxed and nothing else happens. Worst case scenario is a message comes through that you're not ready to hear. And that can be hard. I'm not going to downplay that. That can be hard when you hear a message that you're not ready in it. It might hurt and it might frustrate you more because you don't understand it. Um, but that's honestly the only downside. And that's not even, again, that's not energy trying to attack you. That's just words that you don't want to hear, messages that you're not ready for emotionally. Um, but again, it's not out of ill intent. It's all out of love. It's just, are you ready for that? Are you open for that? Sometimes people aren't, and that's okay. But yeah, it's not. It can be intense, but I would say it's not anything that to be afraid of. And like I always tell my clients, if it's too much, we can back off. So, if you're getting a session and you just feel like cracked wide open and it's too much, we back off, and then and you go about your day. And that, you know, it's not yeah, it's it's not going to do harm.
So, for a nice fun question for my audience, what is like the most weirdest or coolest experience that you had with either Reiki or mediumship? Like what is your
Oh,
like one of your outrageous experiences that you had?
oh man. Um, there's been a few. Um, one of the funniest ones for me was when I finally did do a Reiki session with my husband. And I was like, this will be great. Like, I'm gonna get messages from his guides. You know, it's gonna be awesome because there's so many things that I see that I could tell him, but he won't listen to me. And like, I can't wait to like crack this open and connect and move forward together. And then I, started doing Reiki and was like, okay, do you have any messages for him? Like, what's gonna help him heal? What's gonna help him move forward? And they're like, nope, he has to listen to you first. Dang it, guys! Dang it all. I was hoping for like some life altering insight, and they're just like, nope, nope. He has to talk to you first, and then we'll figure it out. So that was definitely one of the funniest ones because the guys, like, they're just funny. Like, they don't care. They are hilarious. They have sense of humor. They're funny. Um, Yeah, one of the most intense was what I talked about before, where I just like was coughing and then someone is, you know, someone was in a fire and I don't even know what's happening right now. Um, a lot of sassy grandmas, like a client a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, and it was like, okay, I think your grandma's here and she has a message. And she was like, okay, what is it? I was like, you're still not doing it right. Like, that was the message. You're still not doing it right. And she started laughing. It was like, yep, yep, that's my grandma. And so many funny things. And some more intense. Like I have had some clients that, like I said, especially if there's a history in the ancestry of, of abuse, of neglect, of all of these atrocities that humans have enacted upon each other, that there have been some really strong witnessing and letting go and witnessing, people who have been hurt, and just feeling that deeply and witnessing that in a really reverent way. But it can be really intense. Um, yeah, and witnessing the grief that people feel in their bodies too. Um, witnessing, asking people, why does this hand feel empty? Like I just feel like there's emptiness in that hand, and having them be like, oh, that was the hand that my husband always held. He always sat on this side of me and always held my hand, and just like feeling the hugeness of that grief can be really intense. Um, but also so beautiful. And yeah, so I haven't had too many instances of like, books rattling off the shelf or, candles going out or anything like that. I do often forget to blow out my Archangel Michael candle, and I think he likes that. He's like, nope, I'm always here. Don't blow me out. Um, Yeah, I mean, I've had things in my own personal visions that are crazy. I did a ritual a few years ago. It was called Drowning Marjana. It's an Eastern European ritual for welcoming spring. Marjana is the goddess of winter. And so um, you drown her in the spring and say, okay, time for winter to go. And so I did that one spring. And then when winter came last winter, it was like something just felt wrong. Like I was like, I don't know why, but I need to take care of this. Like I need to leave her something. So there was a squash that I gotten from my garden that we never ended up using. It was starting to rot. So I went and put it out in the woods for her. I was like, okay, here you go. I'm sorry. Like I drowned you in the spring. I need to feed you at the beginning of winter. Here's your half dead squash. And then like an hour later, a Czech coin from the Czech Republic fell off a shelf or out of a book or something like that. And like I have Czech coins in a box somewhere in my house. So it's not like it appeared out of nowhere, but they're in a box somewhere in my house. So that was a really weird thing that I was like, okay, I just did this demonstration to this, you know, Eastern European goddess, and now there's an Eastern European coin falling into my lap. Um, yeah, so yeah, the communication comes through more and more in those ways, especially once I've started opening myself up to it. It's kind of, funny things like that happening.
So for a person who wants to start, becoming like a Reiki master or wanting to start developing their skill set and mediumship, like what advice do you have for them?
Do it. Try. Um, I don't say that lightly. I know there's a lot of hesitation, especially like you want protection, you want to do it smartly, you don't want to open up the gates to whatever energy let in, but do it. Um, so yeah, have protection. Make sure you protect yourself. Like I said, I use Archangel Michael. He's the best protector. He'll be there with you if you ask him to be. But asking and stating your intentions that the spirits you work with love you and work within spiritual law for the highest good. Um, that keeps some things at bay. So once you're protected, though, like just try, just do it, just see what's available. Like I said, I got my Reiki certification online, and it's not to downplay the experience. Excuse me, I'm doing it in person. It can be really powerful to connect with actual humans in that way. Um, but you don't need to. If it's something you need for your own growth and your own development and your own healing, then by all means. I mean, I also teach Reiki, so I'm not going to tell you to not learn Reiki from a person, but I did mine online and started playing around with it. And the bottom line is it's available to everyone. You don't need to be certified. You don't need to be attuned to do Reiki. Does it make it stronger? Yes. It's like being a conductor. So Reiki, the life force energy flows through you. None of this comes from me. Do I have an innate intuitive ability? Yes. The healing doesn't come from me. I'm a channel. So Reiki, you can be everyone's a channel for Reiki. If you've kissed a kid's boo boo, that's that Reiki energy. You know, are is your kiss actually healing it? No, but the intention, the energy, it's and so anyone can do it. If you want to do a certification in person, do it. That's lovely. If it's too expensive or just something like I didn't do yoga training because I couldn't commit to it. It was too much time. So do it in the way that you can. Start where you can. If it's an online certification, there's no shame in that. And there's no shame in not being certified either. I'm going to get on a little bit of a soapbox here, but we live in a society that's such a stickler for certifications and diplomas and verifications and all of these like laurels of like, I've done this, I've done this. And I mean, I have them. Like, I have a Reiki certification. I have a master's degree. Like, woohoo. That doesn't make me a better healer than anyone else. And me having done my certification online doesn't make me less of a healer than anyone else either. And if I didn't have certification and this was just something that developed out of my oracle readings, because that's a step too. That's using the oracle readings and oracle cards as a divination tool has also opened me up to receiving my own messages from spirit. So, like, certifications are not necessary. The more belief you have in yourself, the more you trust in your intuition, the more you trust in what's being presented to you, what's being told to you, the more it will develop. The more that I was able to tell my clients, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm seeing, this is what I'm experiencing, and trusting that, the more insight has come in. And sometimes it's really weird. Like, sometimes it's really strange, and you're like, why am I thinking about Jafar from Aladdin right now? Like, this is so weird, but it's something that's meaningful to them. So the more that you trust in your instincts and your intuition against even against these odds and against these doubts, the stronger that connection is going to become. And so I would say just start, just work with it, whether it's Reiki, whether it's, doing meditations yourself, whether it's just declaring yourself open to channels, to channeling um, messages or to receiving messages in your own life. Um, yeah. Again, with protection, you don't want to just declare yourself wide open to any energetic entity because that can get real messy. But establishing your protective boundaries and then trusting it.
So we're almost close to the hour mark. So do you have any last messages or tips or advice that you want to give to the audience about the type of work that you do or some of the experiences that you had? Do you have any last advice or tips that you want to give to the audience?
I think just be open. Whether you're thinking of being a healer, stepping more deeply into your healing abilities, we're all healers in some capacity. Be open to what that means, be open to what that looks like. Don't get caught up in the idea of, I have to have this certification, I'm going to go in this direction. Be open in how it's going to play out. This is not somewhere I ever saw myself being. Like I said, it's not like I've been speaking to spirit since I was 5 years old. Like, this is all has developed from trusting what was laid in front of me and trusting my instincts and trusting the messages. So if you're coming at it from that angle and looking to work on your own, just be open. Be open to what the universe has there. And if you're coming at it from an angle of wanting to receive Reiki or receive energy healing, same message. Just be open. There's so many things that Reiki and energy healing and spirit can do for us if we allow that to happen. And it's really scary and really hard to let go of control. Like, really, really scary, especially because Reiki works with so much of the stuff that we don't talk about and trauma that we define ourselves by. And that's hard to let go of because if I'm not this person who this happened to, who am I? But if you're open to it, only the best is going to come. Only the best. So I definitely, from either angle, just say be open to it and trust that the universe is conspiring for your good. Trust that you have an amazing team of guides and ancestors and angels all around you, that they're just waiting to help you. They're just waiting, and they're very respectful and they're very patient, and they're not going to butt in. Um, but they're there and they're ready and they're waiting. So yeah, just be open.
Thank you so much for coming on my channel. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for sharing the information and knowledge that you have. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity. It was great to chat with you.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. Talk to you again soon.
Yeah. Take care.